Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Pelosi Watch. My name is Sue Vaughn, and some of you may be familiar with me from my other show, Car Free Talk. We're starting an occasional series called Pelosi Watch. We're focusing on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her actions as leader of the House, right here from her home base in San Francisco, the 8th Congressional District. And Nancy Pelosi has been representing San Francisco for about 20 years. She has a reputation for being a liberal Democrat, yet the biggest congressional issue looming before her is funding for the Iraq War. Her San Francisco constituency is steadfastly opposed to the war, and yet she has voted for every single war appropriation since the fall of 2001. Most recently, she engineered the recent Iraq War funding bill for $124 billion that includes a withdrawal date in 2008. George W. Bush vetoed that bill yesterday. Mission not accomplished. And they're going back to the drawing table to figure out what they're going to do about this Iraq War. And here to talk with me about Nancy Pelosi and the war and the anti-war movement are former Green Party candidate for Congress for the 8th Congressional District, Chrissy Kiefer.
Hi,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Toby Blome of the Women's Anti-War Movement, Bay Area Code Pink, and also the founder of Camp Pelosi. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Yes, you're welcome. And Nancy Mencius, also of Code Pink and Global Exchange. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. All right, so here we are, the day after George W. Bush vetoes a $124 billion funding bill on the 4th anniversary of his mission accomplished statement on the deck of that aircraft carrier, looking very adolescent, I think. And I'd like to know how these people are responding. How does the anti-war movement respond? How does Code Pink respond? How does a former candidate for Congress respond? Nancy, how is Code Pink responding to this?
Well, we're responding at all sorts of different levels, and not only just Code Pink, but the entire anti-war movement. But now that the emergency supplemental was vetoed by Bush, and realistically, I mean, we all knew that it was going to be vetoed by Bush. So what we saw in Washington, D.C. was a political drama, political theater, and it was all based on ego. And who's suffering? It's the Iraqis who are suffering, and it's the soldiers who are suffering. So Bush had an opportunity to end the war, to put a deadline on the war in Iraq, and he missed that opportunity. So now we're back to what, square one? We're back to trying to push the newly elected Democratic Party and Madam Speaker Nancy Pelosi to not buy Bush's war again.
And to not put forward another spending bill?
And to not put forward another spending bill. Now, John Edwards said the other day at the Democratic California Convention down in San Diego that what the Democrats should do is they should send another bill to Bush that has a deadline. And if he vetoes that, send another one. And if he vetoes that, send another one. So I think that the pressure is out there. And what the voters did in November is they passed a mandate for peace. They passed this mandate electing the newly Democratic Congress and Senate to be an anti-war Congress and Senate. And we're going to hold their feet to the fire and have them end the war in Iraq and bring the troops home.
Toby, you started a really incredible media splash event here in San Francisco with the marches across the bridge and then camping out at Nancy Pelosi's house. What's your feeling about the Iraq War spending bill, and how have people reacted to Camp Pelosi?
Well, as far as my feelings about the funding bill, we are really confused about the Democrats because so many of them speak so strongly, really strong words about how they're against the war and how they are really opposed to Bush's agenda in Iraq and all of that. And yet, the majority of them are signing on to this bill, which is going to give Bush $100 billion to continue his agenda in Iraq. And so what Camp Pelosi came out of was our outrage over this it didn't make any sense to us. And we wanted to deliver a message to Nancy Pelosi that if she really was strongly for peace, that her actions need to demonstrate that. And so when we had our monthly march to the bridge, from the bridge in Golden Gate Bridge to Nancy Pelosi's house on March 11th, we were coming to deliver a message to Nancy Pelosi and this was just right before the Congress actually voted on the funding bill, to please not vote for any more money for war. And we planned to spend just one night there, and we ultimately got a lot of press that turned out because it was such an unusual action to have citizens come and demonstrate in front of the home of a congressperson, and especially the Speaker of the House. So the uniqueness of it brought a lot of press, and I wasn't expecting it. None of us were expecting it. And I had just not even brought a change of clothes for the next morning. But when we saw that we got a lot of attention, we thought, well, this is a wonderful avenue to not only put the heat on Congress and let them know that Americans are really upset about what they're doing, but to also get the word out to the public that there are people out there that are trying to bring more rapid peace to this country. And so we ended up having actually almost 2 full weeks of 24-hour campout.
Chrissy,
yes.
The anti-war candidate for Congress.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about that campaign and your feelings. Where do we go from here? What do we do?
Well,
what do we call for next?
Yeah, well, a big part of my campaign was I called for the impeachment of George Bush for not only the Iraq War, but what I felt was a real failure around Katrina. Actually, it was Katrina that sort of said, this can't go on. This president needs to be impeached for these crimes. This is just, a horrendous representation of the presidency. I think that this is a perfect opportunity to amp up the call for impeachment. That many towns and city councils and national movements and Kucinich and what you said earlier, Martha, people are starting to call for the impeachment of the president. And I think the Congress should not sign any bill that doesn't call for really strong, bring the troops home, starting immediately. So I think they play that out for as long as they want with each other, and at the same time they should start moving in and impeaching Cheney, probably impeaching Cheney first and then Bush. That's what I would hope to see from our representatives. It's really beyond many Americans why we've had such a lackluster response from Congress on almost everything. I mean, really no spirit or no democracy at work. I think that's what's left all of us sort of like, we can't believe that this just keeps going and going and going this way without anybody stepping out and putting their foot down around it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.